Hi everyone, so recently I've talked about the loot cap and how to get the most items possible. In case you haven't seen that video, you might want to check that out if you don't know about this. But in short, GR90 is the goal if you want to gear up a character really quickly, because this is where you get the most items, and past that point there is basically no increase in rewards in terms of items per hour, mostly in XP per hour and in legendary gems. So the idea is that when you want to make an alt, a new character or whatever, and want to gear up really quickly, or just farm up, for example, Hellforge Embers or whatever you want, you should be aiming for extremely fast times at that tier. So I've been doing exactly that with my Crusader here, that I've played for around 20 hours now. So it says 22, but this is including a bit of like crafting and slacking in town and stuff. So I think the real playtime is around 20, and at that point I am actually almost done gearing it with pretty good stuff. It's not all perfect, but I will show you my items that I have been able to acquire in that time, just to give you a bit of an idea of how effective this strategy is compared to just doing slower speedruns. Obviously, the main disadvantage here is that you get fewer paragons, but I have already reached my paragon goal of 3000, so I don't care anymore. I don't want more paragons. I just want to gear up as fast as possible so I can do 150 pushes with basically all the classes. And the objective here is to lose as little time as possible on my way there. My items are nothing really crazy. You see I'm running around with 18k strength here, so I have mostly non-ancients and non-augmented stuff, and even a lot of dexterity and one socket here, and very greedy choices for extra movement speed, as you can see. Crusader is not the only class that can do that. Every class has really fast builds that can go around GR90 or even higher. In case of, for example, water inner monks, you can do hundreds, 105s even in around a minute or so. So there are definitely other builds that are still kind of efficient in terms of XP, but in general you have to give up something for it. When we started this adventure, we had, I think, 1089 keys, and we used up 571 of them in basically just chaining those GR90 somethings, and this puts us at roughly 29 runs an hour. So obviously this includes a bit of slack and stuff, so the real like speed in terms of runs per hour was more like probably 32 or so, or 33, when you have 70 seconds runs and like maybe 30 seconds downtime, sometimes a bit longer when you sort out some loot, etc. So there was a bit of time involved, obviously. So overall we're going at a pretty good pace here. The amount of forgotten souls, I think I was at almost exactly 36k, so we got close to 8,000 souls in those 20 hours. So if you take this number minus 36,000, yeah, we got 7,700 souls. So that's a good chunk to start blasting some bounties with that and then reforge some items. I'm not really doing this here, so I'm not really going to use those forgotten souls. But typically when you're a group player, then you can definitely go for bounties and use those souls to finish up your character basically in another 5 hours of playing or so. Obviously I gathered some gems as well, lots of rare crystals. I think I started below 10k or so, and a few of the other materials here and there. But yeah, this is mostly what we got. I think my XP per hour at that pace is something like 1.5 trillion or something like that. So I usually got something like 2-3 paragons or so per hour. Not exactly very effective, as I mentioned. If I would focus more on XP, I could get something like double of that with the Crusader, or even triple or quadruple of that with the Monk. So yeah. In any case, the results really show though in terms of the items that I managed to acquire. So the stuff I have equipped is nothing really crazy, but this is hardcore, so I decided to not wear the good items, and I rather wear the bad items for farming, and we keep the good stuff for the pushes, because this is usually what I want to do in case you die or you DC or something on your way to the push. Crusader in general is quite tough to gear, especially the Thorns builds, because you also need to roll the secondaries right, which is very hard to do. And you also typically have very tight cooldown requirements and these kind of things. But we managed to acquire quite a bunch of really good items. So for example, here's an Akan's helm, ancient, with really good stats. So just to glance a little bit over what we have here, there's some pretty solid Akan gloves. Then here's a really nice chest so you can roll the bombardment damage. Unfortunately missing the thorns, but not the biggest deal. It has good secondaries anyway. Here's some really fancy boots. Amulets are not really looking great, but the good part is that, especially for this Akan amulet, you can just use this convert set item recipe here and just roll over and over and over, especially with my amount of souls that I acquired here. Then here comes the invoker stuff. So this is obviously important to be combined with this Akan set for the bombardment push, We have some pretty nice bracers with the life regen here. We have some absolutely insane, perfect with secondary res invoker shoulders. So these are nuts. That's definitely the best find, I guess, that I had overall with this Crusader. Really good Justice Lantern. This one actually dropped with dexterity, but it has perfect stats. We have a couple other pieces here for Invoker. I'm not quite sure about the gloves, so I collected a few of them, but they all work. Here are a bunch of other things. I actually started collecting shield bash bracers quite late. I was gaming bracers for a while, and they look like this. I'm planning to maybe do a little shield bash push with Roland, which we have here somewhere in the other tab. So this is my Roland stuff and my Seeker of the Light. We also have really good stuff here, as you can see. So the boots are perfect, shoulders are pretty good. I'm not 100% sure if I need to cooldown, so I saved 2 pairs here. We have a really good chest where you can even roll the secondary. We have some pants if you want, but most likely I go Crimson. And we have quad factor gloves, pretty good. And also a helm that unfortunately is non-ancient, but also really good rolls here because you can just put a crit on it. Similar with the Hamilton stuff, so again, perfect boots. We have potentially quad factor with resource gloves, although I'm not 100% sure if I keep the resource, but these are pretty fine anyway. Even a primal weapon there, pretty good shoulders that we can roll with cooldown and area. And again, really good chest here with a secondary. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to get a helm. I didn't try to gamble helms, so this one just didn't drop. Similar to here, we might just go and reroll set items until we get a non-ancient good helm and then be done with that. To be honest, I don't really care too much about the Hamilton. So having a non-ancient or 2 set pieces is definitely not really the biggest deal. Here's also a really nasty shield that I managed to roll with area, cooldown and almost perfect affix. So this is actually looking pretty good. Here's, for example, also strong bracers that you can use on the Hamilton or the Gabriel's Ram bracers, both with perfect crit and perfect element stats and good affixes. So this is pretty juicy. And here's our Veiler gear that I will try to do a 150 push with as well after Bombardment. So Bombardment should be very easy with the stuff I have in my guns, but Veiler is always tough because it's a very squishy build, so in hardcore you gotta be careful. It didn't really work out too well with some of the items, so we have pretty solid chests, but 12% life is not really a match for a big vitality roll or auras roll, but we got the physical rest here, which is quite helpful. So here we just roll to Heaven's Fury instead of the armor. Here's some quad factor gloves, but this season in particular, I think I'm actually gonna go with the Remnant of Pain here. So you want to have no crit on the gloves or anywhere for that matter. So for example, we got these braces here. I'm probably gonna roll off the crit and then just put holy damage there, and we have the 100% crit chance from the gem. So in that case, we actually have these gloves here, quad factor with really good crit rolls and attack speed, and then you could roll a strength to cooldown in a regular season. I think this time around, I'm actually just gonna roll off the crit chance and go with cooldown there, or maybe air damage, but I probably need to cooldown. And we have a bunch of other gloves that we acquired on the way there. As I said, like 1 or 2 non-ancients is not really such a big deal because you just lose an augment basically in these cases. And yeah, it doesn't really matter. In terms of weapons and shields, so we got a bunch of these, like flatted charges. So for the Thorns build, Khan's Bombardment, you don't really need an ancient weapon anyway. So you could just take this one, roll off the holy damage for area, or you take this one, roll off the fire damage for cooldown. So I'm not really sure yet which I'm gonna do. We also got this here, which is a really nasty weapon. This is probably what I'm gonna use for the Veiler push. Really nice weapon. So we just roll the socket to probably cooldown or attack speed. And here's also another one that can be used for the Invoker push, because life per hit is a very valuable stat there actually. On the way here, I also managed to acquire a few other pieces that are quite useful. For example, a Holy Traveler's Pledge. So this one is going to be nice for Veiler push. Then we have a rerollable element with scuffed crit damage, unfortunately, but also useful. And we have kind of okay strength crit travelers here as well. So these can be used for some other builds. Overall, I'm quite happy with the result of just 20 hours of farming. So the only item that I'm quite unhappy with are the boots so far. I'll probably try to grind a little bit more to replace those, just gambling boots all day until I get better Veiler boots, because here the all-res is going to be quite important because of how squishy the build is in general. I've also managed to acquire a few other things. I might do an LD push of Blessed Shield actually. So we have a Gear Falcons. It is not really great, but at least it rolled the attack speed. We'll see. It's kind of scuffed, but the shield is pretty solid. Also, affix not really great, but the rest is fine. And we have a primal Ash Bringer. So that one is going to be fun to push with. I guess you might have seen my other Ash Bringer clear back in season 23. And seems like we're going to have a repeat of that one. I also managed to get another few fun items here, for example, a Blade of Prophecy. I also had like a really good shield for Condemn, but I didn't keep them, so I'm a bit unlucky. I'm not really planning to play Condemn. I don't really like that build, but it's a nice little trophy, I guess. And in general, I just wanted to kind of like highlight the effectiveness of the strategy that is the GR90 farming. So if you go really fast at that pace, you can gear up so quickly and get ready with another character after you've already done the typical like Paragon grind, legendary gems, and maybe acquired a few of the jewelry pieces that you can just swap between characters, like squares necklaces and traveler's pledges and these kind of things. Similar with crimson pieces, for example. So playing an Ord or even playing just a different build on the same class doesn't really require too much effort besides making a bit of space in your stash. So usually you have like a dedicated half tab for one build here and then like a dedicated tab for another build there, or two builds here. So typically I just throw in my items and then I sort them out every few hours to just keep the best copy. I usually don't really think much about the items that I save. I just take whatever I find that looks decent, throw it in a stash. I usually have like some tab that is like half empty or something, so I can throw in items. And then after some time I just sort it all out and keep the best ones. And that also concludes the video, so hope you enjoyed this little overview of what my Crusader has, and obviously a lot of pushes are coming, so stay tuned for those. As I said, 150 bombardment should be pretty easy, and then the Veiler is going to be pretty tight, but I think also doable, and a few of the other pushes that we want to do here with the Crusader. That's going to be quite fun. I'm looking forward to it. Hope you do too. I wish you good luck on your own adventures in Season 25. Hope you liked this video, and see you guys next time.